I'm going to just dig into this, and I'm a little uncomfortable, to be honest, because I had no direction up until the time I was going to bed last night, which doesn't always bother me, but usually by the time I get on a plane and head to a city, I'm starting to get direction. I didn't have any direction when I woke up this morning, and then I opened my notes to see, Pastor Brooke, what I said the last time I was here, and under what I said the last time I was here was a note telling me everything to say the next time I come to this church. Hand to God. I didn't even know it was in there. I was like, if I would have known that 24 hours a day, last night would have been so much more fun. So here's what I wrote down to tell you, and I'm nervous because there's no Hebrew, Greek, or Latin. There's not a lot of theology in it, and so I'm just going to say it, and if I get embarrassed that it's too weak, I'll just look down at my notes, and you holler amen, because you'll know that's when I'm getting nervous, all right? 34, oh no, you're not going to help me? Is that what that is? All right, I've seen more excitement in a Presbyterian Sunday school picnic. Matthew 13, verse 31, on another parable, I'm reading from the New King James Version. The words of Jesus are in red. If yours has it, these will be thus. Thank you for sharing the stream and commenting on it. Thank you, Timothy. Thank you. I see you, James. Peggy, thank you. You're so kind to my wife. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. Now, that's not in the parlance of the Valley Girls. You know, it's like a mustard-like seed. Like, that's how the kingdom is like. What the Lord is using is specific verbiage to say, I am going to use metaphors, analogies, comparison, if you like, to show you what the kingdom is like. And it's like a mustard seed. Most people, Brother Paul, stop right there. But that's not the end of the parable. Which a man took and sowed in his field, and then there are a couple of other phrases that are in it. I won't go into it, Pastor Schultz, because I am a 1 and 2 verse preacher. So I'm going to just stick with that one verse, and I'll finish the second one when I get done. The kingdom, hey, if you're going to pick somebody to follow, I'd make it Meshulam Hershkowitz. His people have been reading the sacred text for a long time. Mine just started in the last 100 years. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed which a man took and sowed in his field. I don't know if I'm preaching to anybody besides the Hershkowitz family or not, but I'm happy to come over here and spend a Sunday morning preaching to them about a dream to die for. Father, thank you for your presence. Thank you for the anointing that destroys the yoke. Come and have your way with us in a way that we will know we have heard from God before we leave this place. Everybody that's in agreement, say in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you. You may be seated. I'm sharing it now because Pastor Pete has finally mercifully closed out his message, and so I am now sharing your stream on my platform as well. I am reminded as I look at this text, a brief conversation we had last night about another text in Genesis where the Lord said to a naked Adam and Eve, who told you you were naked? And when that text came up, we preached to each other a little bit in our fellowship last night about how the enemy lies to us about our condition, our current state. And he says to us other than what God says. God was not angry but they were running nude through the garden. God was angry that they believed the lie of the devil, Brewster. He said, who told you that? The implication is, I made you like that. I know what you're like, and it's not a shame, it's not an embarrassment, it's not a disgrace, because I made you like that. Who made you feel ashamed that that's how I made you? I think this is one of the reasons why we're admonished not to compare ourselves with each other. Who told you you weren't as good as they are? Dr. Brewster, who said to you that you don't look as good as they look, sound as good as they sound, can perform as well? Who told you you were naked? As a consequence, we all got dressed. And we've been staying dressed for time immemorial. And that's part of our problem. Nobody wants to get naked anymore. Just tap your neighbor and ask him, you down for getting naked today? praise team up here today. Pastor Sid trying to get us naked, and some folk acting like I'm not even going to unbutton my suit coat, Jack. Nobody going to see what's under here. Pastor up here hollering and screaming, trying to get us to strip down, and some of you wouldn't even loosen up your necktie. Nobody's getting a look at this business, and I get it. I know the reason why is because we're afraid once somebody sees me naked, they're never going to want anything to do with me again. If you really know how I think, if you really know what I'm struggling through, if you really know what's going on in my life, you may not ever want anything to do with me again. But I came here this morning to tell you that one of the consequences of the cross is the ability to strip naked again before the God of the universe with no shame, with no humiliation. If you didn't like that, you're going to hate this. And the legacy that he bequeathed to us is his body, the church, in front of whom we can connect, we can make a relationship, we can bridge a gap, we can get in a small group, we can meet up at the altar, and you can't get naked in front of everybody, but you can find somebody and say, here I am, this is me, this is my struggle, this is my problem. Do I scare you? Can I be naked here? My eldest granddaughter, who, as you know, tragically slipped off this mortal coil February 24th, 2 years ago, went to be with the Lord. She was hilarious, the original wild child. And when my son when she was 3 or 4, my son came to live with us for maybe a year, I guess, with his wife and his kids. And she was buck wild. And she loved to get naked and take a bath and jump up out of the bathtub while she was all soaked up and wet. I'm talking about 3 or 4 years old. And go running through the house screaming, I'm naked, I'm naked, I'm naked. And then she would run to a window, impale herself on the window, and start screaming to the neighbors, I'm naked, I'm naked, I'm naked. I said to my son, if you don't get her, they're going to think we're a bunch of pervs up in here, and somebody's going to go to jail. Naked. But I hope by the time we leave here in the next 10 or 15 minutes, you're able to jump up and run out of here to your world and say, I'm naked. I'm not hiding anything. I'm not faking. I'm not playing. I'm not pretending. I have been set free. I'm naked. Shove your neighbor and give him a heads up. Tell him I'm finna get naked. You just so you know, I'm finna get naked. Ariana is my original. She's my OG. It's hard to believe it was 16 years ago this past September. She was born September the 28th of 2007. And she just turned 16, just got her driver's license. And she was my first grandchild. And I just had never, because we did not have biological children, I had not had the joy of seeing my child born. When I met Garrett, he was 7. He turned 8 a few weeks later, and I married his mother the week after that. And so, I know you're not going to say man because everybody in here is involved in a blended family. You can't acknowledge this. But when you come on board when that kid's 8, all you're getting is the worst part of raising that kid. I mean, it's like, are you kidding me, man? You don't get the cute little. Now, my wife tells me he was the cutest little baby that you've ever seen, that he was so funny, he was so entertaining. He's 42, and she still imitates things that he said when he was like 3. And I'll take her word for it. I didn't see him in that phase. I don't remember him being cute and endearing. I remember him being 8 and hell on wheels. That's what I remember. And the only thing great he's ever brought to my life is those 5 grandbabies, and that's been worth it. I'd go through it all again to get those 5 grandkids he gave me, because I'm not their step anything. I'm not their substitute anything. I'm just their grandfather, and I get to talk to all of them every week, and I love it. But Ariana, this is not going to be shocking to anybody here, but it was to me because I just never been through this. It was the wildest thing, Pastor Brooke. Ariana looks different on every visit. And it's funny, now I know this is true for all of you, even with your biological children. Isn't it the weirdest thing to be raising people who look just like your crazy mother-in-law? Don't say amen, Brother Doug. She's watching the live stream. Act like you don't know what I'm talking about. It's a weird feeling. And people used to say to me, because my stepson looks exactly like his biological father, I mean exactly like him. You know, I used to weigh 300 pounds, had a 52-inch waist. Garrett was always like a scarecrow. Little sticks for legs and little sticks for arms. And he was just weighed about 45 pounds, you know, when he was 8. And he was long and lean, and he had a square jaw. I have one, Beam. You just can't see it in there. But Garrett had a square jaw. And little old ladies would come up to our table to look at our cassette tapes, and they'd tousle his hair, and they'd say, "Oh, you look just like your father." And then at first I'd try to explain, well, you know, I'm not really his dad. And then I just gave up on it. We'd just laugh, and I'd say, yeah, he really does look just like his dad. And people would say to me, doesn't it bother you that you're raising another man's son that looks just like him? And I would say to them, doesn't it bother you that your son looks just like your wife's mother? And over the years, Garrett has went back and forth. He looked like his biological father, and now at 42, he has totally changed. He has the biggest belly on him you've ever seen. He looks just like my wife's side of the family. It is an interesting sight to see him coming now. He's totally changed. His jawline has dissipated up into his chubby jowls, and he's a completely different person. But what I've observed with these grandkids is I've seen them look like his side, his father's biological side of the family, seen him look like my wife's side of the family, seen him look like their mother's side of the family. And I said to her when she was 3 or 4 and she came in the house, I said to Ariana, I said, man, you look different every time I see you. And I said, I can't tell who you belong to anymore. And she said to me, because you know how they are once they're 5 or 6, they're not little anymore. When I would say, this is what I say to my 2 eldest granddaughters, they're 15 and 16. When I see them, first words out of my mouth is, Ariana, Grandpa's little baby. And when they were about 5 or 6, they started saying, Grandpa, I'm not little anymore. I'm not a baby. You know how they do. I'm 6 now. I'm not little anymore. And I said to her on one of those occasions, I said, you look different every time I see you, and you're so tall. And I always say, stand here, let me see how tall you are. And they'd be about this tall, and I'd go, man, you are almost as tall as me. The next visit you'll be. And she said to me one time, Ariana, she is something else. She has never lacked for confidence. Ariana said to me, yeah, I know. She said, I am. She's about 6. She said, I am getting taller, and I'm going to be taller than my mom because she isn't even growing anymore. Are you growing anymore? Lean on your neighbor because they think I'm playing too much. Lean on your neighbor, tap your neighbor and ask him, well, are you? Are you growing? Because you know most people in this room are not, by the looks of you and your age. Once you get past about 28 and a half, you don't grow anymore. People don't read new books. They don't learn new skills. They don't acquire new information. They are just who they were when they were in high school. I'm coming here today to preach to a group of people who have made up their mind that 2024 is indeed the year that you are going to have more. You are not just going to finish this year surviving. There's going to be more of you. You're going to have more information. You're going to have more revelation. You're going to have more of a visitation. This is the year that you are going to have more. You're right, Tim Cruz. I am going to get it when I get back home. Here I am to the text now, and it isn't going to take me long to give it to you right here. Matthew, Mark, and Luke record this story from which I've extracted an excerpt in this 13th division and the 31st verse, and the 32nd verse continues the story. But there's 2 common elements in the mustard seed story from Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Do you know what they are? The first one is this. I'm just going to share with you the thoughts. I love the sermonizing. I'm going to be honest with you. My safety is in sermonizing, to know when I begin, where I'm going to end, and to commit that absolute to memory. And that's why I preach extemporaneously when I come to the pulpit. But I've not committed this to memory. I have no idea where I started. I'm no concept of where I'm going to end. I'm just going to read what I wrote down in August that I said to myself, say that the next time you go, and maybe as I go, it'll make sense to both of us. There are 2 commonalities in the story, and here it is. The first is that birds, nobody ever talks about this, birds were lodged in the tree at the end of the story. Nobody ever talks about that. They talk about the fact that it was a mustard seed and it's the tiniest seed, but nobody talks about the fact that there were birds sitting in a tree by the time you get to the end of the story. And the second commonality is that a seed was planted. Those are the two things that each of those gospel writers hold in account. Pastor Sean, just a hair more on the monitors. Matthew, Mark, and Luke said that the birds were lodged in the tree and that a seed was planted. Let's just deal with that and then we'll bring it to a conclusion. You have to have the faith to give it. Faith is risking a known quantity for an unknown increase. It's releasing what you have for what you hope to have. It's more than hope, it's hope acting. It's acting on hope. It is not faith until it involves action. I'm going to preach that till 3 more of you holler at me. It's not faith because you believe it, it's faith because you act on it. Everything else is just hope, which is the precursor to faith. But until you act, it's not faith, because faith without works is dead. Show me your faith without your works, and I'll prove my faith by my works, that I have acted on what I believe. Faith is the substance of the things that we once only hoped for, and now it is the evidence of things not seen. Let me try it like this, because we think that what we give or sow is what demonstrates our faith. Relax, because I know I'm preaching in America this morning, and I know as soon as I start talking about seed, it makes you nervous because you think I'm talking about money, 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 money. That's all you can hear when I start talking about seed. But seed can be any number of things. Watch me right here, because I want to show you something about the power of your seed. We often judge by what we give, but the real demonstration of our faith is what we keep. Let me try it like this. Ask him to get the puppets ready for me. I might need them. Let me show you what I mean. But you remember when Jesus is standing in the shadows at the temple, and the rich man is presenting the big cardboard check to the building fund? This given on behalf of Andrew Willis and Associates, $100,000 to the building program. While they're doing it, this widow woman comes around the corner with 2 copper coins, and she drops in the copper coins. And you know what I'm talking about, because if you give a $100 bill, you will unfurl that bad boy on your aisle, snap it out, and when they get ready to pass you the offering pan, you just tell them, you can hand that down for me, girl. That's all right. Just get that. And everybody on the road looking back at you like, well, that's what I'm talking about. But if you bring a dollar bill, you will fold that thing up so small that next morning in the office, they got to take an ironing board to iron out that dollar bill. You know why, Sister Felicia? Because we are all judging each other on what we give. God is judging us on what we keep. I'm going to preach until I get some help, Pastor Randon, because you don't understand my faith till you understand what I have left over. If you only see what I give them, you don't understand what I have left. That's why the real faith is not in what you're given. The real faith is what you're willing to live on after you give what you got. Jesus shut the whole thing down. He said, well, hold on just a second. I like flashy Andrew and his cardboard check, but she just gave more than everybody else. Well, how do you figure that, Master? I figure that because I know what he gave, but I know what she kept. She had nothing left you don't hear what I'm talking about. See, we can judge somebody's praise by what they give, but we have no idea what they have left over. It doesn't look like much to you, but you don't know the hell they've been through in 2023. It doesn't look like much to you, but you don't know they almost lost their mind. It doesn't look like much to you, but God says, oh, I know what that took to lift that hand and tell me thank you with what you're going through right now, with what it took to run that aisle while you're going through that struggle. I know you gave me everything you had left. Sometimes the silent, weeping worshiper is giving more to God than the guy who gets up, runs an aisle, and throws a chair, because he's got more where that came from. But the silent, weeping worshiper is saying, I already lost my loved one from this life. I gave up my job. I'm barely holding on to my sanity, but I still worship you as the King of all the kings and the Lord of all the lords. Giving is not a true, I still have 2 minutes. Giving is not a true measure of faith. What you keep is a better indication of your faith. Faith isn't afraid that there isn't much left over. You got to have faith to wait on it. I'm already in the second third of this message. Faith, you got to have faith. This is where people lose their faith, when you can't see it. Put the seed in the ground. Sow my seed, y'all. Can't wait, got a harvest coming. Wrote a check for $53.27, and the prophet said if I did it, God was going to turn it around. Unless the seed, the grain, from my King James Version readers, unless a grain of wheat falls in the ground and dies. This is where people lose their faith. This is when they can't see it. Do you hear me, Morphers? This is where they lose their faith. It's after they gave it and I can't see it no more. Because it's out of my hand and I can't see what's happening with it. I do not have time to make this scientific contention with you, but it is a scientifically tested, proven, and accepted fact that this is not just a teaching metaphor, that indeed a seed falls into the ground and it doesn't seem like it has died. Science says it does indeed die before it comes back to life. That's what kills us, is we take the seed out, we give it away, it disappears, it becomes invisible, and then it dies. Shucks. You gonna act like you don't know what I'm talking about? This is where the disciples of Jesus even lost their faith. After the seed went in the ground and died, they said, man, what was all of that for? That was 3.5 years of my life I can't get back. That's 3.5 years of my retirement that's not in the 401k anymore. There's 3.5 years of my family that I'm never gonna be. I'm preaching to somebody in here today who has went all in with Jesus, and now you're standing here empty-handed. You are in the place where the seed is invisible. You are in the place where the growth cannot be seen. God sent me here to tell you that faith waits on it while it dies and it's invisible. 1 Kings chapter 18, after 3.5 years of drought, Elijah prophesied that rain is going to come, and then he began to pray for the rain. All of this, you know this about me, all of this is stuff I would normally preach for 45 minutes before I'd go to the next point. But I feel like the Lord has done much of what he wanted to do already, so I'm hastening to my end. 3.5 years, Elijah prophesies we're coming out of the drought. It's going to rain, and he prayed, and then he said, go look for it. Faith not only waits for it, but faith keeps looking for it. You didn't hear me, so I'm going to say it 2 more times. Faith doesn't just hope for it. Faith gets up and goes to look for it. You ought to get up out of your situation right now and go look for the rain. You ought to get up out of your misery and go look for the blessing. You should go look for the job. You should go look for the promotion. You should go look for the increase. You should have them run the test 1 more time at the hospital. You should go look for it. Well, Pastor, I already did it. Well, go do it again. That's what the servant said when he came back. He said, preacher, there's nothing out there. And the preacher said, go look again. And he came back and said, there's still nothing out there. He said, go look again. Faith doesn't just look, it keeps on looking. I know it's coming. If it's not over there, Sister Tara, it's going to be over there. But I know this, I already got a promise. And my answer is on the way. This I know. He told him the 4th time, go look again. I'm telling somebody in here that has already looked a 6 times, go look 1 more time. Because if you have a promise from God, I don't care if the seed is invisible right now. I don't care if the seed is dead right now, Claudia. God's promise is that the rain is coming, and faith says I can. Really what I'm preaching about What I'm really preaching about. I see you, Sister Franita. Wait till I tell you what your husband did today. What I want to explain to you, my brothers and sisters, is that after you put the mustard seed in the ground, it's going to look like you backed the wrong pony. After you put the seed in the ground, it's going to look like you made a bad investment. After you put the seed in the ground, it's going to look like you rang the wrong bell. But you got to let the devil know, I shall not be moved. Just like a tree planted by rivers of water, I shall not be moved. I know it's slow going. I know it looks like he's never coming out of that tomb. I know it's been 3 days, but stay right there where you put the seed while it's invisible. Stay right there where you put the seed while it's dead. Because if a seed falls in the ground and dies, it shall doubtless come up. And not only will it come up, it'll bring fruit with it when it comes up. I can't get anybody to talk to me right there. I want to let you know he's going to turn it around. And it's not just to get you back what you lost, but when he turns it around, he's going to bring some fruit out of the ground with it. There's more in 24. I said there's more in 24. Shove your neighbor, tell him it's going to turn around. And when it turns around, there's more coming with it. I'm getting ready to sit down. Would you be seated one more time? I'm going to finish right here. Here's my third and last thing I want to say to you. I promise you I'm done. Because faith, when God gives you faith to plant the seed, you got to have the faith to put the mustard seed in the ground. You got to have the faith to wait on the seed to grow. And then you got to have the faith to stick with it. Here's the thing. I never heard a preacher address this text in my life. I didn't need anybody to preach it when I read it because it just excited me. I never heard a preacher talk about anything but the mustard seed. But when Jesus told the story, Jesus said that tiny little seed is the greatest of all the herbs that grow in the garden. As a matter of fact, he said it'll grow up like a tree in the garden. It'll get so big that the birds will rest on it. I don't know who I'm preaching to right here, but if I'm talking to you, when you hear it, holler at me so I know I haven't wasted a Sunday away from my house. The seed did not become the bird's nest in a day. I'm going to say that 2 more times so you can tweet it out. I said the seed did not become a bird's nest in a day. I said the mustard seed, the tiniest seed, did not become the blossoming herbal tree in a day. I know that God's up to something in your life. And if you just give him a little bit of time, he's going to take that little thing that you thought could never be anything. He's going to water it. He's going to fertilize it. He's going to sun it. And he's going to shade it. And growth is painfully slow. But if you hang on in there, there's a prayer you prayed 5 years ago. There's a prayer your mother prayed 32 years ago. There's a prayer you prayed that you already forgot. That's a seed in the ground. And when it comes up out of the ground, it's going to blow your mind. And you're going to say, oh my God, that was a mustard seed prayer. I forgot I even prayed that. But ain't God good that he never forgets a word you have laid on the altar to say, Lord, touch my family. Lord, touch my marriage. Lord, move in my ministry. Somebody shove your neighbor and say, neighbor, get used to me because I'm not going anywhere. Hit him on the other side and tell him, neighbor, get used to me because I'm going to stay right here like a tree planted by the rivers of living water. Ooh, yeah. Meshulam Hershkowitz, get used to me. I'm not going anywhere because I stood next to a mustard seed in Los Angeles, California, and I put that mustard seed in the ground, and I made up my mind before you loaded the U-Haul and brought the wife and kids back to our capital city. I shall not be moved, just like a tree planted by rivers of living water. I shall not be moved. Yeah. I got to go sit down now. I've kept you 10 minutes later than Pastor Brooks said I could. And I asked her because I don't trust him. And I apologize. I'm going to my seat. Growth is painfully slow. Ariana says that she knows she'll outgrow her mom because her mother is not growing anymore. When I was a little kid, I got unbearable Charlie horses. The calves of my legs pounded with pain. I'm gonna be 57 in October, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night, seizing and screaming for my mom. Mom would come in there. My mother was not, nor is she now, ever a nurturer. Mother would come in there, and after assuring me it couldn't possibly be as bad as my dramatics, it could be. It do be like that most of the time. She would say this to me, Dr. Brewster. I don't know if it's true or not. Don't correct me now if I'm wrong, because I'm just going to say what she said to me. She said, it's okay, it's just growing pains. I don't know if that's true or not, sir, but that's what she said. Here's what I do know. It was enough to get me through the night. Because I'd reach down there and grab that leg, and I said, that's going to be worth it. It hurts right now, but I'm growing. I'm done, but I feel like God just sent me on an assignment to somebody over here today to tell you you're hurting, but you're growing. The last 2 years since we put my grandbaby in the ground, kind people don't know what to say. They just ask, how you doing? Brewster, I'm hurting, but I'm growing. And sometimes that's the only sense you can make out of the hell you're going through. I don't know why I'm going through this, but I've grown while I've been in this. My marriage isn't fixed yet. It's killing me, but I'm growing. My son's still not out of the woods yet. Pray for me when you think of me, but I'm growing. Haven't got over everything I lost when I went through the bankruptcy, but I'm growing. Would you stand to your feet? Would you reach over and put your hand on the nearest person, because I think you might be sitting right next to somebody who's hurting right now. When Pastor Hirsch said this, I really felt like my presence here might be superfluous, which is why I have not, for me, preached very long, because I thought when he said it, that's it. That's the word of the Lord. He said, it just stands, something to this effect, it just stands to reason that you're here today because you're hurting. It just stands to reason that you came because you have a need in your life. I know it sounds crazy, but you can't believe how much more pain you can take when you realize this is going to work out for my good. I don't know what you were when you were having growing pains, but I was a chubby little kid dressed out in husky blue jeans from Sears and Roebuck catalog. And for a chubby little kid to have his mom say, hang on in there, baby, because when this is over, you're going to be bigger, you're going to be stronger. That was enough to get me through some painful nights. And I want to tell somebody in here who is struggling with cancer, somebody who is struggling with divorce, somebody who is struggling with your sanity, God sent me to tell you that when when this is over, you are going to be stronger than you have ever been in your life. And this is going to be your testimony. When the birds come to rest in your nest, people are going to say, Lawrence Perez, were you born with this? Did you inherit this? And you're going to say, no, sit down. This is going to take a minute for me to tell you this story. I started with nothing, and then I thought I lost it once I buried it in the ground. And then to my surprise, it poked up one day, and I realized the dream had not died. I was the one that had to die for the dream. And then the tiniest thing became the greatest thing in my life. Look what the Lord has done. The mustard seed has become the tree. If I'm preaching to you, would you get out of your seat and come here right now? I see you wiping those tears. Come here. Come here. If you are fighting for your son, you're fighting for your daughter, you're fighting for your grandchildren, come here. I want to pray over you. If you are fighting to overcome a terminal disease, if you are struggling through a transition in your family, would you please come here while the doors of the church are open? There is hope for you. There is room for you. God has prepared something for you beyond your wildest imagination. It is not over for you. It is not over for you. It is not